Castlevania series, Nocturne. Now, it's only the first season and it ends on a cliffhanger. But it was overall pretty good. Um, some things happen in it that were definitely interesting. Uh, One of the night creatures, which are supposed to be, excuse me, made from human corpses with a demon from hell possessing them. Well, one of them still has its original inhabitant possessing it. So it's a night creature, but with a human soul. So that was kind of interesting. And you got the latest member of the Belmont clan, like in episode 6 or 7.
It looked like it was a sweep almost.
Yeah, we won't go into that on here. But
yeah, we're not going into politics, but I mean, local mayor race. So
yes, the polling place is quite close. I walked there and voted before we started filming.
yes,
so.
I mean it's literally next door. So, anyways, sorry.
Yeah, so Castlevania Nocturne overall is good. I still, since I know some of the historical background to the slave revolt in Haiti, like the way they're painting it, like first and foremost, to be crystal clear, I'm not going to shed a tear for any slave owners that get killed in a slave revolt. The problem is they killed everyone that was white during the slave revolt, for those of you that don't know, and a lot of mixed people too, which would have had to have included the vast majority of the population that weren't slave owners, and a whole bunch of kids and whatnot. And so this is trying to portray all this in a good light, and I'm like, I don't know about that. Like, rebelling and, ending slavery, yes, totally, absolutely. Going after the slave owners themselves? Sure, I don't care. The slave owners, they probably got it coming. But the let's kill everyone else part, and it tries to gloss over, like, oh, but most of them were vampires, and it's like, but they weren't. Like, so anyway, that just kind of hit me the wrong way. And then the character from that is there now in France is sitting there. The Belmont character runs for his life at one point because the vampire that killed his mom when he was like 8 shows back up. And she's like, oh, he's a coward. And someone even tries to explain it to her later. And she's like, oh, he doesn't know what it is to be this, that, and the other. And it's like, look, I get it. You went through some shit. You were a slave. No one's going to say that you had an easy life, for sure. You definitely went through some shitty things. We even see some of them. But, like, when the person that kills someone else's mom just randomly shows up and you're like, oh, fuck him, he's a coward. It's like, you're not making many friends here. And you are not even remotely close to strong enough to stop this problem. Plus, this being a Castlevania series, you won't be the one stopping the problem. Like, just straight up, it's going to be the Belmont kid. Because that's just the way it goes. And I really love towards the end when this character, Alucard, shows up in the final episode in the final 5 minutes. And, he mentions who he is to the vampires he's about to fight. He's the son of Dracula. And this character that's acted like pretty much a know-it-all, and oh, I'm so tough. It's like, who the hell's Dracula? I'm just like, and you're ignorant too. It's like, that sounds about right. So yeah, don't really care for her character for the most part. Hell, even in the show, like the ancestors were like, look, you need to tone it down just a bit. Like, she's there in the astral plane, like, well, I can't hear any of them. And the one that's talking is like, because you're not listening. Like, shut up and listen. So yeah. Then the big bad is Elizabeth Bathory, who they're saying in this one is like thousands of years old, and drank the blood of Sekmet, the Egyptian goddess. So, yeah, she's pretty powerful. Like she uses magic to cause an eclipse, so that the vampires can just like roam free and start terrorizing everybody. And like once she goes to like Super Saiyan mode during the eclipse, she becomes like 12 feet tall. So yeah, she probably actually did.
Well, Owen always brings up a good point with every time we talk about that. He's like, well, all the vampires should die when the moon lights out too.
It's direct sunlight.
It is still direct sunlight.
No, it's a reflection off the moon. It's direct sunlight.
I know, but it shouldn't make a difference. You're reflecting photons.
It's not the photons. It's nothing to do with the radiation or anything like that. It's because the sun is the source of light and life and good. It's a holy symbol. That's why.
No white people walking around with crosses all the time.
Yeah, because to a vampire, from a true believer, it's literally like the power of faith, the power of God is like because they're an unholy abomination.
So would the power of Christ compel me?
If you're a vampire, it could.
Okay.
But depending on the vampire, that's highly dependent on the faith of the individual, but also of the vampire when they were alive. And some of them, like if it's say someone who is a Muslim in life and becomes a vampire, the cross might not do anything to them, but the crescent moon would. Because it has to do with their belief in God as well.
So I was getting Moon Knight to come in and.
Yeah, well, I mean, there's always just the chop them to pieces thing,
Like I say, there was actually a little bit of Castlevania stuff that I streamed, and that was I watched the You Can Beat Video Games episode of Super Castlevania 4, and I don't know if it's actually listed in Nintendo Power this way or in any sort of documentation, but Super Castlevania 4 gives you the ability to whip your whip in all sorts of directions. You can also hold down the attack button and just go like this. And so
I'm not gonna lie, that's how some of the fights in this show come across sometimes.
It's like, and then you didn't see that. It's just me flipping my wrist up and down. It's like it's not actually like whipping like a whip would do. But
it is all on the wrist, though, Jim.
In the way that the YouTuber does it, and like I said, in the YouTuber's channel is You Can Beat Video Games. The way that he words it is he calls it the flaccid whip technique. Because you can just drop your whip down, and if an enemy runs into it, they die. So you're not even whipping with it. You're just like draping it down, and somebody will run into it. Or like Medusa heads are coming, and Medusa heads in the original game were a pain in the butt because they would be the weird like wave patterns, but you just flaccid whip like this, and they just fly into it and die immediately. But seeing them go through that game, and I'm like, I've never made it through this game, and he's just strolling through it like it's nothing, and half of it's like, okay, here's where you do it. And then just realizing like some of the stuff that I'm just like, I was always, it's like, oh yeah, when you walk across these platforms, don't jump. As soon as you jump, they flip on you. And the secret is just to walk across them. It's like in the first Ninja Turtles, there was this like gap in the ceiling thing where you're supposed to like, you just walk across. And you're like, you're not supposed to jump? You're like, no, just walk. Because you would jump, you'd fall back down, then you have to go back to the level, all the enemies respawn. It was a pain in the ass, but yeah, no, as I was like, I watched that, I'm like, is it really that simple? And then like all the bosses, like, oh, you just got to do this. And it's like you beat almost every single boss. Like Dracula's just a cakewalk and that. So I feel really stupid now when I have it. When I look at that, I'm like, I've played this a few times, I've never gotten very far, and it's like, is it really that simple? And it's just like,
yeah. Well, there was one other thing with Nocturne that 4 seasons of the other show, as long as if I recall correctly, never actually showed, and this one only starts to show in the finale for season 1. Is one of the vampires actually turning someone else into a vampire? Because all the vampires are all vampires already, and you've got like a handful where you see that they've bitten somebody, and like in one of the flashbacks in this, you see the after effect, but here's actually seeing someone being turned, so you actually see what it takes. Which, for what it's worth, it's biting them, and then they have to drink the vampire's blood, which is what it usually is in vampire things. But
yeah,
but we don't see to the point that she does turn. That'll happen in the second part, presumably. But yeah, it's nice seeing Alucard back, which maybe Dracula will show up too and fight Elizabeth.
Which Belmonts do you get to see?
This is
because I know you got Simon and Trevor. And there's Richter.
This is Richter.
Richter's like the backflipping crazy man from Symphony of the Night.
Yeah, this is Richter, and I've seen people post online that some of these characters are from Symphony of the Night. Because there's one vampire who's an Aztec, and yeah, I found out finally like why he killed Richter's mom. It's because he had a lover who was think he said he was an Apache. And uh, even though he was a Native American, like he fought for the U.S. during the Revolution to overthrow the British. And this guy, I think Orox is his name, turned him, and then she killed him. So he killed her, and he is sleeping with this Templar guy. And so he's kind of like, so after he tells him the story, he's like, "So you gonna turn me?" He's like, "No, I don't love you." I was like, "Damn, that's cold." Although what he does later on in the show kind of proves that he's a lying sack of shit. He definitely does love him because he saves him from certain death at one point. Because he, or Orox the vampire, does not want Elizabeth Bathory to ascend to whatever she's going to. I don't know if that's purely because he wants that kind of power, or if he's just like, nah, screw it, no one should have that, or he just doesn't want to bow to someone else. But whatever his motivations, he eventually starts helping Belmont and his crew to try to overthrow her.
I just want to see that they actually bring the corniest line from Symphony of the Night into. So I was having to look this up because I don't remember the exact words. Because it's Richter and Dracula in the beginning of Symphony of the Night exchanging words, and this is before Alucard shows up and gets all of his power stripped, and he has to regain him Metroidvania style, as they call it. But the Dracula's thing is, "What is a man?" and throws down his goblet. "A little miserable pile of secrets. But enough talk. Have at you."
I have seen that in people's signature lines, and I've always wondered what that was from. But yeah, so season 1 was good.
But they need to put that line in there just for no reason at all. Then people would be like, but instead of having like the next line of dialogue, just be like, "The hell was that?"
Yeah, so like I said, I want to see where season 2 goes. You know, having never played the games, and from everything I see online, this is literally like some other plot that they just like stapled Castlevania names to it. Well, that was the other thing. Is some of the people that are helping Belmont are like pro the French Revolution. And I'm just like, do the writers of this show actually read what happened in either of these revolutions? Because like it's showing like the beheadings, you know, at the guillotine, and I'm like, they know this didn't end well, right? That they just like massacred a whole bunch of innocent people, and then they themselves got massacred because they were assholes.
Yep.
And like, then what? Napoleon took back over or something, if I recall correctly. I don't know. I'm not an expert on French history. I'm probably way off on that. But yeah.
And so, like, one thing I know about French history is French fries. So
you mean the things from Belgium? But yeah, they. It's like one of the bad guys is a priest who is in league with Bathory because they want to restore what was, because the revolution wants to take out the church. And like, man, does this show just shit on Christianity at every chance it gets?
Well, I mean,
and I'm like, you know, like, obviously the guy's made a deal with the demons. Like, he's clearly loopy, so sure, have at it. But it's like, you know, like, I like where the show is going with some things, but some other things were just like, you are aware that, like, last I saw, over 90% of the world believes in something, you know.
Oh, that doesn't surprise me.
Like the atheist approach, and I mean no disrespect to any atheist. I want to be crystal clear about that. It's very clearly a minority opinion, and it's not growing. It's shrinking. If anyone actually looks at the numbers at least the ones I've seen, because you know, people, if you think about it, if you have two atheist parents, you know, there's at least the chance you're going to convert to anything, you know, because how do you instill believing in nothing into somebody? That's a choice you have to come to pretty much, you know, at least in my experience. So, whereas the other, you can, you know, instill that in your children. Like, you can instill skepticism, sure. But, you know, I'm just saying, I've seen the people I never ever thought would convert, like Alice Cooper, like the thing I sent you the other day. Like, that just blew me away. I was like, you know, Alice Cooper, really, of all people, never would have guessed. And I'm saying this as someone that's agnostic at best. Just anyway. Talked about religion, Jim. You sure you don't want to get into politics?
Well, no, I was actually going to get into religion as well because it actually made me think of the Van Helsing anime, where it was the Protestants were recruited a la carte to fight other vampires for them. And one of the things that they have to go up against is the Catholic religion, who's also hunting vampires, but also like, you've got one there fighting for your side.
Yeah.
And it's one I'm gonna have to rewatch again because it's only 13 episodes. I thought it was longer than that.
Yeah, well, that's kind of the position the priest is in, because he's like, look, I have to defend the church, and like, this is the only way I see to do it is to pair up with the vampires, and because he's the one making the night creatures with a machine that was made in hell.
Oh, yeah, knows one does. I mean, I've got one over here if you need it.
And like the Templars are all behind him. What breaks the one Templar's faith in him is finding out he has a daughter. Not the rest of it. Not the in league with demons, not the machine from hell, but the fact that he slept with a woman and has a daughter. That's what he had a problem with. And this is the knight that's sleeping with the vampire guy. The Aztec vampire. And it's just like, what is going on here? There's parts of this show that, like I said, a little sketchy. Overall, it's good, but... Thank you for watching. This has been a Geek Cabal video, Echoes of a Whisper. This has been a clip from one of our podcasts. The link to the actual podcast this is from is in the description of the video if you want to see the entire thing, which we obviously encourage you to do. But otherwise, if you enjoyed what you saw, a thumbs up is always appreciated. Subscriptions and all the rest is definitely appreciated. Comments, as always. But just in general, thank you for watching. Hope you liked it. And check out the other videos we have here on the channel. See you later.